Be a man, macho, man up, strong, alpha. Those are words or phrases that are used to describe men or even used by men themselves. But what does that mean in terms of how we define masculinity, especially today? And do we need to rethink it at all? Well, today we have a men's roundtable to discuss that and more. And I'd like to introduce my guests really quickly. From my left, Octopizzo, who is a hip-hop artist, award-winning, and activist as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Eddy Kimani, who is a media practitioner, as well as an entrepreneur and mental health champion. Pastor Simon Mbevi, we know him from Transform Nations, but also Man Enough, that has made an amazing impact on men in this country. And last but not least, we have Ian Jege, who is a digital marketer, but also the founder of True North. You'll be telling us more about that as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. But before we begin, we talked to a few men in Nairobi CBD just to find out some of the pressures that they go through and how they manage it. Take a look at this.
Myself, when I have something that's disturbing me, I tend to I tend to drink sometimes, because I understand that sometimes the men they're made to be believed that they cannot show emotions. So sometimes when you're in a club or somewhere where there's just men, you tend to, you can, once you drink, it tends to lower the stress of something that's disturbing you.
Yeah, some men do that, use drugs, and men have ego. You find it's hard for a man to approach another man when he has a problem.
Because out there you cannot show your weakness, you cannot just show any weakness, or maybe cry or do something. Or when you talk to someone, you tend to think maybe they may go and share, or share your problems with.
And whenever I'm going through hardship, I take the word of God, the Bible, and read and pray, and by doing so I get renewed and strengthened, and I can face another new day.
In 2014 I lost my job. I was in Mombasa. So basically what I did is that before people knew about me, people knew about what I had gone through, I found myself deep in alcohol, that is, but of which I came to, do away with it. Wanawake, they would come, cry, proud, wanatoa their stress out, wote kila kitu inaisha. But for us men, sisi tunaifungia ndani. Unapata mtu ameenda kwa club, umekunywa, unatajaribu kuwear out your issues na pombe. The others ndio unapata kama saizi kuna a lot of incidences, watu wanauana, unapata mtu ameua familia yake yote, amemaliza, because kitu ya kwanza unakosa kufunguka roho.
All right, so, we just watched those young men just talk about some of their experiences. One who was very candid and said, I got into drinking at some point when he lost his job. But I think if we can go back to talking about how boys are socialized, the reason why things like man up or be a man have become such phrases that are entrenched in boys, that when they grow up, they feel, I cannot express myself, I cannot be emotional, because that's not what being a man looks like. Octopizzo, let me begin with you. How did you feel you were socialized, even growing up in Kibera?
Growing up in Kibera is hard. You can have, it's different. You can have 10 dads, or you can have one dad. So it's very different, but still there was no, you can't show emotions, period, as a young man. And I was with my dad until I was 14, and he would wake me up in the middle of the night just to walk me in the street and tell me, this is what men do. You walk at night and you take care of your family. So you grow up this is what we should do. This is how it should be done. If it's movies, you only show boxing movies. You can't watch romantic movies. Why are you watching this stuff? You're not allowed to go to the kitchen. Why are you going to the kitchen? And it was tough. It was tough to understand, but then I thought this is normal. This is what should be happening. Yeah. But I think as I grew up and I had my daughter, then that's when things started to change, I think, for me. So when I started being more emotional, I started reading more about emotional intelligence, and I probably learned more just from Google. I Googled how to be a good dad, because then my dad was not there, and I couldn't ask any of his brothers who are his uncles, because I'm from a different generation. The way I wanted my daughter to grow up is different from the way I see them raising their kids, or the way we were raised. So it was tough, and there was no, until now, I think, even in Kibera, there's no space for like boys or like even men to go say like, hey, this is how we feel. This is how I'm feeling right now. We still like, even you're told like, this is how you should be, like you should be doing this kind of jobs,
right,
you know.
Right.
And so I think it's still a big issue, and not only in urban, in the rural it's even worse, you know. And I feel like nothing is still happening about it. We were like, even doing my hair like this, I will never do it, because then I will be told, you're becoming a girl. You know, like when I first did my ears, is because I took my daughter to do her ears, and like, hey, it's painful, I can't do it. So I said, okay, I'll do it, then we do it together. But people just think like, this is just fashion. This guy is just, you know, even my friends today tell me like, oh, you sold out. This day you're becoming more girly. You know, like you're not man anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, you know, times have changed. I think the thing people call the man is not on the physique, according to me. You know, it's just like on like your values actually, and who you think you are.
Yeah.
When nobody's seeing you.
And we'll talk about that as well in terms of redefining masculinity. But it's interesting, Eddie, when I listen to Octopizzo talking about your dad taking you on a walk and showing you this is what men do to take care of their families. And not a lot of that is happening now, where boys are being shown what to do or how to be a man, would you say, or agree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, okay, I think the dynamics have changed in how we are bringing up our children compared to how we were brought up. And that has been brought about by the way the environment has changed. Social media has come into play. The digital world is devouring this space at a rate which is really crazy, because there's so much information out there. When we were being brought up, I think the most I had in terms of a lot of information in one place was those, what are they called, the almanacs? You know, those, I think if you're lucky enough to have those collection of those thick, big books. Yeah. But now, anything, you turn on your phone, there's information. And again, that goes to influence also how the children at home, or who they're listening to. See, my dad would tell me something, and it would be the end and the final word. Right now, I think there's too much information. Unfortunately, kids now are getting phones as early as even 7-6 years old, you know, and already they have another platform that is giving them so much information. And I guess also the dynamics of the world moving so fast, the parents being so busy, not having enough time to sit with their children and just engage them. Then you find the kids, what will they do? They'll resort in what they have the closest to them, which is what? The phone. And they'll pick that up. Remember, these are very fragile minds. Yeah. And what they pick is what they take in. Yeah. And of course, there's also the aspect of what the kids see as opposed to what they hear from you as a parent. How they see you do your things is what they're going to take in, as opposed to what you tell them. You know, so there's those dynamics which have really changed a lot. Yeah. So there is definitely a challenge there.
And you've mentioned the whole thing of parenting shifting from actual parents to devices, unfortunately. But Pastor Mbevi, and I'm sure you've interacted a lot with this with Man Enough, many single-parent homes led by women, and mothers having to take on the responsibility of being dad as well. And how does that change how a boy is socialized by a woman, of course a lot, than a father figure or a man?
Yeah, definitely that has an effect. I mean, I grew up without a dad, so I know it's around 9, 10, I really wanted to have a male figure. Just psychologists tell us between 0 and 8, the main person the kids want to hang out with is their mom. because of a connection that has been there right since birth. But from 8 years, they begin to pull out a bit to know themselves, and at that point, they need other than mom to be there. So my dad died when I was 8, just when I was turning that, taking that step and wanting to find a dad. So we talk to single moms about making sure that there's someone else who would be like an example. Because at that point, as a boy from 8 to 16, I'm trying to think of becoming as a man, and I need a picture of what it means to be a man. I need someone telling me that this is masculinity, this is the other. Actually, fathers are so important, or whoever steps in there, because I always say masculinity, the quality of masculinity in any generation is really seen in the quality of fatherhood in that generation. If the fathers are not passing on the baton well and showing the example, and it's not just a father in the home, but fathers in the surrounding, the boys are looking at different fathers and they want to know. So it's very challenging, but it doesn't mean they cannot do it. I mean, my mother still did a good job. But what she did, she exposed us to uncles and other people that would talk to us and connect with us. So there was a community, there was a village that helped us. I think what has broken down these days is the community. That if your family is not working, life is not working, because no one else around you could be able to step in. And I think that's what we are doing with these men's groups and boys groups and Men Enough. I think the beauty of it is just to have men sit together and realize you can learn from one another. What has broken is that community socialization. Not just one-on-one, but together. I think a man is made a man among men. It's when we get together and talk about these things that we help each other. So yes, we need to look for ways of returning that structured socialization. For women, you don't need to structure it as much. Women will always connect with their daughters and other girls and talk to them. Men, unless you structure a place of socialization and make it safe, it's just not going to happen. That they're going to have conversations, clean and good conversations about what we do as men. So that's what we're lacking a lot.
And I think another thing that kind of would be a barrier or hindrance to overcoming maybe toxic masculinity is the myths out there on what it is to be a man. And Ian, I guess growing up and also now interacting with other men, what myths are out there that would inform how they behave and also how they are perceived by women or even society generally?
I've just been listening to everyone and realized that I think mine was the exact opposite of Octopizzo's. My dad died when my sister and I were really young, and my uncle shortly thereafter. My mom had been away for a while, so my grandma took up the role. And so for me, I grew up in an extremely female-oriented environment. There are things I do very well, unlike most men. I express emotion better than the average man, which is great for my craft as a writer. But there are many things and many places where I feel insufficient, simply because I didn't have a mirror to look at growing up. My grandma, all credit to her, is an amazing, strong woman, and she did the absolute best she could. But I think she was from, because we're talking, 2 generations behind me. There's a lot that she was unaware of. I didn't exactly spend a lot of time in the community and forums that other men were in. So the first time I realized, something might be missing is after I ventured into the world and got my first job. Lucky for me, and I think that's kind of where my influence came from originally. The first guy I worked for immediately after school happened to be an amazing man. Maybe I should just mention his name, Kanji Mbogwa. Kanji was my first employer. I was 19, and suddenly there was someone who I could look at and see, am I behaving in a manner similar to that? Am I interacting with my world in a way that he would? And we were together for a while, and there's been several other people who have come and filled in that gap. but it was a very real one. So I guess to answer the question, yeah, it's possible to go all the way to being a 19-year-old and not have any kind of male influence in your life, like literally. Wow. The only other males I was with was in boarding school. Well, luckily, again, I was in a mixed school. I thrived in high school, by the way. I have to say that. Coming from a female environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot I wasn't aware of until much later.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe just talking about those things and we peak of negative masculinity. Some of it is from our friends. Like for me, I was brought up well. My mom was amazing. So she taught me what is wrong. She taught me how to treat girls well. Before I went to high school, she taught me a bit of sex education, which was very limited, but really good. So I feel home really did well for me. But then when I went to high school, it's the boys who was telling me, hey, you've now done this, you've now smoked marijuana. So just that push from other boys that this is what makes you a man. Because I think from around 13, 14, then the boys around you become the major influence. So if your dad and mom did not lay a good foundation, then now you find yourself smoking because boys want to show I'm part of his table. I'm part of his clique. So it's interesting. Boys will do stupid things just to be accepted by their boys.
To fit in.
To fit in.
And that's why I think also the beginning of toxic masculinity starts from, because from home because they have your best interests at heart, your mom and your dad, and then now you go up to this environment which starts giving you this new information and new ways that you should start embracing to sort of, and then automatically you start feeling like, I'm not getting this at home, but all these guys are doing the same thing and it looks like it's really, really cool. I think that's when now things just start turning around.
And I really wonder what impact this has on mental health as well. Octopizzo, we were talking about this earlier. You had tweeted sometime last year that 2018 was the year that you realized we really need to talk about mental health. Why did you decide to share that on social media?
I think first, as artists and like celebrities, like we keep a lot. We only show the nice things, and when you realize that many, and especially in this generation, they're not listening to their parents. They're listening to us, and we are like giving them the wrong direction most of the time, because we only show like, nice chains, nice shoes, which is good. Everybody wants nice things, but then the reality side of things is not there. Like there's no one who is not successful on Instagram. Everybody is successful on social media, and these young people are growing thinking this is the reality, and this is
how it's supposed to be.
This is not. And then I had my own experience, like at some point with depression last year, and I checked into therapy and did my sessions, and I realized there was a lot of gaps. And for me, it was not only for me, but also to understand, because I was raising my daughter alone, and it's hard. It's hard when like you're raising a girl, and now she's almost getting to a teenager. I don't know how to deal with it, and I was like, I need to find ways on how I'm gonna talk to this girl. And I raised my siblings since I was like 15. So I've never like really had that moment where I was a boy, and enjoyed like boy stuff. So I got into the music. I got famous. Money, travel, and also you are in a certain age where like now you should be like serious, like chilling, but this is when like the boy things start hitting you, like, oh, my dad is not here anymore. I can't do this, and then you start realizing that this is not how it should be, and this is all in the mind. This is all like what the energy that you get, because what people forget, the energy you get, it doesn't matter where you are, that's what you'll give up. And when you grow up in an energy where it's like, hey, this is how you should come out as a person, this is how you should talk to people, and then you come up from the streets like us, which is different when you're like middle upper class, because where you come from, you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to say like, I can't do this. So you always say, I can do it, even like I can't do it. But you have to say, yeah, I will do it. And you're not allowed to be wrong, or you're not allowed to agree that I'm wrong. And then And then I started like dating, and then it was like different cultures because they were not like Kenyans. So there's like a lot of things now going on. You know, if it was like a Kenyan girl, you know, like, hey, this is our style in Kenya.
Yeah.
But when like somebody is foreign, and the way they do their stuff, then they do your stuff here, is start like conflicting. And you're like, am I the person who's not doing this right, or I just don't know what's going on? So this is the time I realized, like, you know, many young people are going through stuff that affected them as kids. Because with my therapy, what I realized, they were saying, like, you know, it's trauma from like when I lost my mom, because when I lost my mom, things changed.
Yeah.
I was like, now it's me, you know, now I'm going to the street, this is how I'm gonna do my things. And, you know, and family just give up on you. These days, like, you could see like a young boy smoking weed, and the first thing the society will just judge him, that that's a write-off. Like, leave him alone, he's gone. Or when I start doing music, and people are like, but you went to school. Music is for like failures, you know, for people who didn't pass their exams.
Yeah.
And you know, all this stuff, you're growing with them in your head. And then when you become successful, the same people who are telling you the same things are like, now, this is really nice. You're really doing amazing. So you're only a good person when you're successful. Meaning if the music was not successful, probably 99% of your family members will not be talking to you. And you know, this affects you now when you're an adult, when now you're starting to start your own family, because everything you start reflecting on these things, and this is the blueprint, yet the blueprint is broken.
It's very interesting, because you mentioned you're not allowed to cry or show emotion. And Eddy, I want to put this to you, because you had mentioned in another forum that you feel men are under siege. And how do we couple that with engaging emotion in a man-up culture where you're told you cannot show weakness? How do you begin to kind of sensitize young men and boys that it's okay
to not be
okay and express it?
It all first starts with realizing that, to see where the problem is. The problem for me, how I see it, is that I grew up being told a man is not supposed to show his feelings. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show or your intention of showing that you're feeling a particular way. And that's why we've got the catchphrases of kangumu, jikaze kidynamo, mambo yote itaisha tu, weka tu, to the extent where even your friends, mwanaume ni kuvumilia, you know, all those, and it sounds like a very funny and very interesting catchphrases, but remember, what we hear is what we take in. And from those young ages, I think, of course, it starts wiring into your system that that's how a man is supposed to be. So we grow up building these walls around ourselves, trying not to show those feelings. And for the longest time, I think men have never been good at showing what they feel, expressing what they're going through. And you find a lot of men wearing masks just to hide it all. And it's for that reason a lot of them will do that. They'd rather go down than drop a tear, or even just show that they're at the verge of crying. I can easily cry now. I can do that now because I understand that emotions are, that's how we've been created. Emotions are part of us.
Right.
So you can imagine we are suppressing what we are supposed to be using to express how we feel. And that's why I think for ladies it's very easy to deal with the challenges that you might be going through. So we've been told, wewe usilie, kaa ngumu, your friends, they see you're going through, they make it worse, kuja nikunulie mbili, tukae chini.
That brings a whole other set of problems.
Don't be like a guy, exactly.
And together with what we were taught about masculinity is also what society expects. I mean, if you were sitting on Moi Avenue and you were crying there, people will make fun of you. And maybe it's genuine, but nobody is probably going to help you. If Victoria was there crying, a lot of people will come to help. So society doesn't give us permission to deal with that, and we've got to give ourselves permission in those forums that are safe, where we say we can deal with this. But part of it, Victoria, is that we even don't understand emotions. And I should say emotions are like the lights on the dashboard. They show you you what's going on
inside the machine.
Yeah.
And you need to look at them. But I remember when I got married, I would feel things and I wasn't sure what I was feeling. And I'd come home and explain to my wife.
Yeah.
And then she'll say, you're just sad.
Oh, wow.
So even the language we
Yeah.
don't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So part of what we train after Money Nav, we have a crucible.
Yes.
We train the men to use certain emotions. When you're feeling like this, you're sad. When you're feeling like this, you're angry. When you're feeling like this, and then we say, okay, now tell us what you're feeling. And now they have the language.
Wow.
'Cause
Wow.
At that point, you really didn't have. You didn't know. You just felt bad. You know?
Right.
It's very
Right.
confusing, yeah?
Yeah.
Because you want to express something, but because of this things we've grown up knowing or being taught we shouldn't do, you end up suppressing so much. And of course, at some point, like a river, it has to
It
find
has to
its
exactly.
way. And that's why you're
Right.
seeing so many crazy things happening
Crimes
out
of
there.
passion, you're
Crimes
wondering
of
what's
passion,
going
wondering
on.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Somebody has suppressed a feeling because it has now reached a point he can't hold it back, and crosses 3 counties to go and do what that fellow did.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
nobody talks to him
and
all
nobody
over.
Yeah.
nobody. So you can imagine, it's a very lonely place. You know, you can be in a group and you're lonely, and you are
Absolutely.
as even in a group of men.
Yeah.
But because we are collectively coming together and we are keeping all our, we are not even helping each other. If we don't know how, and I like the way you put it, we don't have the language or even the mechanism
To
of understanding
express,
how
right.
to express our feelings.
Right.
If we just learn that language, expressing ourselves, it can solve so much. Yeah, individually and also again as a society.
That's right.
And I'm really wondering, Ian, from your perspective, do you feel there's need to start redefining what masculinity is, or totally break down those structures as we understood it and build up something new? And what should that really look like?
Wow. I think we should. I think it's time. I do not think that the old model is going to work for this new day. The dynamic is too different. Like I was talking about earlier, despite having a really solid mentor, later on I kind of left, and the first time my kind of masculinity was really called to question is when I found this amazing girl that I wanted to spend my life with. And she was like, okay, let's see how it plays out. And I found myself in a play field that I was not equipped for. So, I mean, the real drama in my life, and you know my larger story, everything came undone, and my addiction went full blown after I moved in with my girlfriend. So she had certain expectations about you being the man, and you provide us with leadership, you will provide us with ABCD. I had not grown up around a man to understand what that is supposed to look like.
Right.
And I knew I loved this girl, and I couldn't express to her that I am drawing a blank. I don't know what to do here. And all that frustration pent up over a long time found a vent out in alcoholism and drug abuse. And this took me many years to understand. I just thought, and there's a lot of stuff that led to the addiction, including stuff that should have and shouldn't have happened in my childhood. But the moment that led to everything just coming out, the floodgates opening as it were, was this moment when I didn't even realize how insufficient I felt in that moment. And so lashing out, all manner of behavior, cheating on her, leaving and not saying where you're going and being gone for weeks at a go. And then the full rock bottom is when now, of course, I go into rehabilitation. And I realize something is very broken about my approach to life. And this is the part I really can't explain. Maybe it's just something larger than myself guiding me, or purpose, or whatever you want to call it. But everything that happened after rehab the second time felt very purposeful. The kind of books I started reading, the kind of material I started gravitating towards. And slowly over time, it began to fill this massive vacuum. And there was this one thing that was probably the most healing thing I've ever done. When I came home from rehab the second time, and I sat down with my wife, and I sat her down and opened up completely about how I felt, about how sorry I was, about how lost I felt. She finally saw me for me, and for some reason she stayed. That for me was the single most healing thing. I finally exposed myself for real to this person, and they still care enough to stay.
Right.
And I decided that, okay, I like this new direction. I like being honest with my emotions. I like being honest with the people around me. And that was going on 8 years ago. And, you know, everything since then has been a very deliberate effort towards discovering the kind of man I am.
So that was you redefining your own masculinity through your experience.
Yeah. Just to answer the same question, and also to build up on what you say, I think we can't really say we are going to redefine masculinity. I think the best way of approaching it would be to know, find a way of expanding what it means to be a man without losing masculinity, because masculinity is something you cannot. There's nothing you can do to it, because I mean, a conversation has to be had in terms of even understanding, and it has to start from what is boyhood and what is manhood. And once those are identified, I think it would also help to advance that whole aspect of masculinity, because toxic masculinity is one of the things that I think is taking precedence in this whole issue of defining a man. And it's really taking a big part, it's taking a center stage of even how men are being related to in the society.
And that's a really good point you've raised, Eddy, in terms of how society interacts with men. And I want to put that to you, Pastor Mbevi, because Ian, you said once she accepted, she heard your story and she said, okay, what role do women, society, religious groups play when it comes to really hearing men and walking with them on this journey?
I think they play a very big role, because a man wants to be affirmed. Affirmation for a man, and I think that's what happened for you. When you shared all of this and she affirmed you, she said, you're still my man. That gives you the strength to fight on. And I think a lot of women put the pressure. I was talking to very young ladies the other day. They're probably in their late teens, and I asked them this question, wanaume ni? And they said, ni pesa.
Wow.
And I just thought, at this point, what you think masculinity is money. So you're going to look for sponsors and people like that, because people at your age then cannot afford the lifestyle you want. So when a woman is saying you need to put the money down, and if you don't, you're not man enough. Women play a very big role in defining what masculinity is. Yes, they say psychologically we become men for each other, but we do it to please the ladies. So if a lady says this is what is needed, many times we're going to do it for them. So ladies play a big role. Mothers play a very big role. That's why we have the Mothers of Sons program. Because a mother, they say between 5 and 8, a boy is closest to femininity as possible. That's when they want to hug you all the time and be close to you. That's the time mothers should teach them these emotions. Tell them this is what you feel, this is what happens.
It has to be a deliberate decision to take advantage of that gap,
that season.
That season too.
And really tell them. And I think for us, you said because we were brought up by women, we understand a lot more of that. So I think women have their role. Fathers have a big role. In fact, I think they have the largest role, because my son right now is looking at me. If I tell him it's manly to be in the kitchen and wash utensils and help your mother, he takes it as gospel truth. So I play a very powerful role. In fact, as we talk about this boyhood crisis, one of the things we want to do is train. We're hoping after Father's Day next year, we're going to go around the country and work together with whoever is willing to train 1 million fathers in 3 years. Just how this masculinity has changed, so they can transfer it to their children. Because I think if the fathers get it, then it will move on. So society plays a big role. The media plays a big role.
Oh, yes.
What is it
So
that
big.
you're showing as really great?
Yeah.
That's what we want. So if you show us being a man, even if you're in Kibera and you're working very hard and taking sacrifices to raise your family, that's manly, then we want that. But if you take this other person who has stolen money and now becomes this other status man and now is using that money to woo girls, if you show us that's masculinity, a lot of kids will take that. So I think we need to see that the role of redefining masculinity is not just for the boy or for the man himself, it's for all of
It's
us. We are
everybody.
all to blame for the state of masculinity.
It's a
All of us can fix it.
wholesome solution.
Yeah.
Bring everybody on the table.
Absolutely.
The messaging also plays a big part, and media
Yeah.
has a huge responsibility.
It's a big platform,
It's
and you
a
have to be
big pla- that
very
can-
responsible. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
When
And
it's still available.
well,
Traditional media is like kind of going this way, so every kid is on social media.
Social media.
Very
so
true.
whatever we put out there, and like it's true, like when it comes to like I think emotionally for men, the most affirmation they can get is from a lady. It doesn't matter whether there's their mom, their girlfriend, or their sister. Like my mom was not there since I was 15, so I'm with my younger sister, and I'm the firstborn. But anytime anybody else can tell me anything, but I'll be like, bro, I don't know you, but I don't care. Even my uncles. But when my sister, because we grew up together, and I feel like she's the only person who really know me well, and she's like, hey, this is not cool. Like it gets me like
There was
really
trust.
hard. And
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my mom talking into her. So I always like, whoa, oh, what did I do? You know?
Yeah.
And for us, it's even hard because when you're like kind of a celebrity, you have to like appear this way for people, you know? And when you even try to appear normal, people are like, look at this guy nowadays, he looks like this, you know? Because you have to be, there's like a perfectionist of thing, like the way you should do things. So you have like 1 million followers, but you're so lonely. And you can't show it.
yeah.
Because when you show, it's like, hey, how?
Yeah.
Or you know, if I go to Kibera and say to people, bro, I'm feeling really low. How do you feel? Really? Like, let's smoke a joint. Man. You know, and you can smoke a joint, and then what?
Yeah.
It doesn't go.
And I want to kind of close on this point in terms of having the safe spaces. Maybe we can't redefine masculinity, but maybe redefine the safe spaces, because the safe space is what you described, smoking the joint, or if you go to the
But
club with
maybe
the boys.
just as we go into that, is
Yeah.
to say part of redefining
Yeah.
is taking courage. For example, courage, there's a lot to learn from the previous generation.
Sure.
I mean, the men were courageous. But now we turn that around and we say courage is not going to war because you may never go to war. Courage is being able to face your own emotions
Yeah.
and
And
admit
being
that
able
to your wife.
to embrace them.
Yeah.
Redefining those
Exactly.
words
Yeah.
that say what masculinity is.
So what should the new safe spaces actually look like now? You know, where can, if they're watching right now and they're wondering, sounds great, but where do I actually go? Who
There are
do
not
I
so
talk
many.
to? Yeah.
But they're available. And one of them for me is from an experience I had. I did the Man Enough program,
Yeah.
the first season for 2019. Thank you very much, Pastor Mbevi, for coming up with this amazing program. It's life-changing. The impact is amazing. So that's one of them. And when we say about safe spaces, Man Enough is a space that, for me, it allowed me to sit in a group of an age group,
Yeah,
because they turn things a little bit, they put down into age groups, and you're able to relate. But then we would still meet separately and mix together with the other age groups, because again, people who are maybe over 40, and in that group we have maybe the 20s and the 30s, they start discussing some issues. It won't really work very well, or some things they will not, even the young ones might not even understand. Yeah, so it really helped in creating that space as an age group, and then later when we come and engage together as a whole. Now, a safe space would be defined as such: a safe space where I wouldn't feel I'm being ridiculed. I would feel with people who have the same, we have the same issues that are challenging us or are bothering us. We can discuss and interact about it. And a lot of these situations is that engagement, that talking, which ends up with that amazing 3-day camp at the end of the Man Enough program, where now you have activities to sort of put together what you've learned through that 9. So those spaces are very crucial. And one is to engage by, of course, that verbal conversation, and then going on the ground and interacting physically in various activities. It just elevates
Yeah.
the issues that men amongst themselves are having. And there's some really nice camaraderie that comes out of it.
That's true.
I mean, there are hundreds of WhatsApp groups right now of those age groups.
Oh, wow.
People are discussing and
Yeah.
engaging each other. So it's not just about finishing the 10 weeks and going. That safe space carries on.
It continues.
It continues.
Yeah.
But yes, we need more safe spaces. And we're not saying spaces. Back in the day, it used to be called what? The cave. Men used to call it going to the cave.
Going to the
Going
cave,
into the
and
cave,
the fireplace.
and the fireplace. But now the world has changed so much that a space can even just be a group on WhatsApp where it's just men engaging each other and talking about issues, reaching out for help. And something again men don't know or like doing, reaching out for help.
And having the rules that nobody, as you said, is judged or reviewed, because that's what works for us.
Exactly.
But we say everything is acceptable here. No one is judging you. We are all
Exactly.
broken in one way or another.
Right.
And we're here to become better people.
Exactly.
So I think that gives men just permission to realize I'm not trying to measure up. Because that's the stress. What causes a lot of mental health issues for us as men is the stress of measuring up.
Yeah.
You're not measuring up at work. You're not measuring up with your girlfriend, with your wife.
Exactly.
And all of this is
Weighing
on you. No wonder as women you live longer than us. You get to talk.
It's true. It's proven actually.
Yeah, if I have a conflict with my wife, by the end of the day, she'll have talked to 5 women.
You will keep quiet, go to the room, hold your face, wondering what.
So bottling in a lot more. But gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in. We're out of time, but I hope this begins more conversations and more safe spaces are created as a result.
Definitely.
Hopefully more roundtables like this.
And the
spaces
fireplace,
as
which
well.
I know Pastor David is very, he likes about the sitting down around a fire outside in the forest.
And the men are staring at the fire, not at each other.
You have somewhere to look. It's not awkward. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Keep the conversation going on social media as well. Have a wonderful evening. Let's do this again next week. Bye.